Hey, Josh. I see you've started a fire in the studio again.
Yep, lit it this morning.
Okay, safety hazards aside, I couldn't help but notice there isn't any kindling in the booth. How did you start it?
Bodies, Ayli.
Bodies?
Bodies. Specifically the bodies of the most useless team in the league.
Okay, but don't snotlings have a hard time combusting?
It's not snotlings. Look, just get a little closer. Can't you smell the disappointment or notice the haze of underperformance?
No, but now you're starting to scare me.
It's the damn Old World Alliance. You know, humans and dwarfs, halflings and ogres. Well, they're all part of the flame now.
Okay. I know they didn't receive a warm welcome with the latest edition, but they can't possibly be that bad.
And then it cuts in a single Blood Bowl game later.
Wow, this fire was a great idea.
Yep. Welcome, ladies, gents, snotlings, and ogres of all ages, to another
Not
episode.
humans, dwarfs, or halflings.
Yeah, not humans, dwarfs, or halflings. I am here on BBSPN, not to talk to you about rules or current literature, which we will get to in a next episode, hopefully. But to gripe and hopefully elaborate on possibly the biggest oof in Blood Bowl in terms of teams. The Old World Alliance. They had taken something that had recently gotten support in 2020 and completely flipped it on its head. And now I have gathered so much rage and pent-up frustration from this team that I was able to convince Ayli to talk to you, our viewers specifically, about just how awful they have it now, and to dissuade anyone who's looking into getting this game from ever attempting them. Let's
Really harsh there.
The harshness, in my opinion, is deserved. First off, I mean, the cost for models now is ridiculous. We're looking at least a 5,000 increase for each positional. I used to be able to run every single positional in the Old World Alliance with 2 rerolls and an ogre, specifically. And now, the last time I had to play them in a league, I've had to run 3 halflings to get and sacrifice my Slayer positional just so I could afford enough rerolls to play the friggin' game.
What was your lineup, out of curiosity? Because I have not had this problem.
So, my current lineup was, I want to say, 5 human linemen, the thrower, the catcher, the human blitzer, both the dwarf blockers. I nixed the dwarf runner because to be honest, I want to just take the human thrower instead because that's sure hands. Anyway, the blitzer, 2 halfling hopefuls, and an ogre.
So you had a deep bench then. You had that's what, 13, 14 players?
That was 13 players.
Okay. No, I mean, like, that's respectable.
Yeah. But just to reiterate for people who have actually just started playing Blood Bowl, this used to be a team that you got not the best of both worlds, but you got a sampling from each team from the Old World factions. You had the humans who were hybrids and decent blockers, and you had, the halflings, of course, which, compared with the ogre, now you have a turn 1 scoring option. And you had the dwarves, which, while they had animosity, they're still dwarves. They had block and tackle. That's all gone. And when I heard about these changes, initially I was like, oh, so the prices are going to go down. They'll have different skills and a different strategy, but their price will go down, so they'll at least have something going for them. They'll be like any other mixed team. They'll be, a little bit more challenging, but there's still a caveat to playing them.
No.
They got rid of everything. And it boggles my mind.
So, like, I get it, because, like, I was talking to, like, a lot of people who played, like, BB20. I didn't play BB 2016.
Yeah.
Full disclosure. A lot of BB2, and then, like, I'm only just recently getting into tabletop. But in BB 2016, they were arguably a little too good, and that's not surprising.
Yeah.
Because mixed teams like this, when people have tried them in the past, they've been stupid broken. Like, there is a reason there is not an elf on this team. There is an absolutely reason for that. Because people have tried this experiment over, however many years Blood Bowl's been around, and it's almost always ended up being busted in half. So, like, from people I talked to, they were like, oh, no, those dwarfs absolutely needed Loner. Like, okay, that works. That makes sense. And I like that change a lot. But, like, at the same time, part of me is just like, dude, this is...
It.
Armbar and Brawler?
Yeah, so for those who don't know yet, trust me, you'll know now. They gave our dwarves Armbar and Brawler. Armbar and Brawler are great on something that isn't 95,000 gold. Armbar and Brawler is for something like a Black Orc, where they just have to die naturally for most of their blocks. When you put it on something that has Loner with a Dwarf line, which is stagnated because you have to bump them up with now human linemen, there's a possibility that Brawler will get you nowhere. And of course, with them having Loner,
Your reroll doesn't go anywhere either.
And more importantly, beyond this, having block means that you still have a defensive measure when it's not your turn. Experiencing, like, most recently, I played against a dwarf team. Experiencing a team that has block into your team that only has Brawler with the same strength, it is watching a slaughter. There is just, unless the team you're playing against is basing their movement on dodge and distance and kiting, you are going to watch that dwarf line crumble when it's your opponent's turn. Especially with how brawly the 2020 edition is turning into. It works my stomach how sickening it is to see dwarfs just fall over like goblins.
Like, I'm of, like, a mixed mind here, because you should not be putting regular dwarfs on this team. I don't think tackle needed to be on them. Tackle blocks a bit much.
Yeah.
I think block armbar would be fine, because it's not nearly as good, but block on your Loner piece is still like okay, it sucks, but at the same time, it at least, like, makes the team, play the LOS a little bit better. Like, I was super excited for OWA, and I've been playing them, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is horrendous.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, going on higher prices, your team rerolls cost more, and at least, I don't know about you, Ayli, when it comes to building a team, I can't risk buying an apothecary just yet.
I was about to say, I think you have to skip out on the apothecary, and that feels bad sometimes. There's a lot of teams that do it, though. It's not a new thing to Blood Bowl, but, like, when you're playing, like, when your team is mostly comprised of humans, it feels pretty bad. Never mind that, like, and we should clarify here that, like, I mean, I think Josh has much stronger opinions about OWA than I do. Like, I get why they made these changes, but, like, damn, like, this is painful.
Yeah. Well, think about it now. Say say you ignore my advice and you get an Overworld Alliance team anyway. Point to me in the Games Workshop website where you can buy these mofos, because you can't. If you wanted to buy everything that is involved in an Old World Alliance team now, you would have to buy a standard of 4 kits. Let's say we're throwing eBay and some of the other low-cost model shops out of there. You guys are great. But just say if someone who wasn't really privy to that wanted to get into the Old World Alliance team, they would be very disappointed to see how little support there is available for a team that came out last year.
Not even 12 months ago.
Not even 12 months ago. And of course, like, the more research I do, the angrier I get. But if we look at the other mixed teams, like when the last edition, not the last edition, issue 11, I believe, came out with mixed teams, it was a gold mine. Chaos Renegades getting official support, Underworld's getting better support and a better kit, and the Old World Alliance teams, it's just like a mix-maxing frenzy. It was great. It was inventive. It was fun. It felt like Blood Bowl. But now it's changed entirely. Like, for instance, let me just flip to the Underworld's team real fast. Going on buying kits earlier. At worst, you have to buy 2 kits for the Underworld team. 2. And they're 2 of the standard kits. You don't even have to think about Forge World and the like.
Well, okay, so if you want the troll, that's in plastic. If you want the rat ogre, I mean, that one's Forge World, or you could spend the... Hold on, I gotta pull it up. I've got Games Workshop open. Or you could be a genius and just buy the $40 like Clan Molder kit, and that gives you some extra like Skaven to do funny things with. The downside is that your rat ogres are hideous and that they need green stuff because they have gaps. But but like it's a plastic rat ogre is the point I'm getting at here. So like 3 kits, but like
those kits are everywhere.
That doesn't feel as bad. Those kits are everywhere, and also like it feels a little less bad in my opinion than OWA's situation, because Old World Alliance is, a lot of those pieces are not available as single kits because you don't get I guess if you already had like a dwarf team, or that's the big one, is that like if you already have like the dwarf team, getting into like the human half of this team is difficult because so little of your pieces actually go into that team. So you do need to buy the human kit, and that does give you most of like what you need. But you're still down an ogre and a halfling because the human kit doesn't come with halflings anymore. Yeah. Which I think is the big it's just crazy. And like, I'm trying to be the voice of reason here because I don't want us to go episode 3. Here we go, hot takes.
Yeah.
But like, this feels bad. And like, yeah, Old World Alliance was too good. They were too good. But this is a bit much.
But going into Underworld's teams, they got the Gutter Runner, the piece de resistance of all Skaven teams on their roster.
Yes.
For the same price, mind you. Of course, they only get to take 1, but now they have mutation access, which is big, which is huge.
Could you say 2 heads break tackle?
Yeah.
I knew you could.
Just
AG6 dodges.
If you guys, for those who haven't experienced mutant teams yet, give them a shot, because mutations on a team, especially with base models like the Chaos Renegades, it changes the entire mindset of how you build a league. Because since now it takes less SPP to get into skills, having a tree-like mutation is phenomenal. 2 heads, a big giant ass hand. I can't even remember what the heck it's called. Giant hand.
Big hand.
Yeah.
monstrous mouth is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, at worst, you have a player with a hilarious skill that is actually useful, and at best, you've made your player an absolute monster. Yeah. Like, it's really fun. Like, it's really hard to whiff on mutation. I mean, like, you can, like, disturbing presence is really awkward. And, like, what's another one? Very long legs. Is very long legs still a skill?
Yes,
I'm
very
90%
long legs is
sure
still a skill.
Yeah,
But
very long legs is really awkward. But, like, there's so much in that skill tree that's just like, or in that that skill set that's really exciting to use.
yeah, but the thing is that the Underworld teams has its place next to the Goblin teams who have a bunch of secret weapons, and the Skaven teams who are just are moderately more reliable with less animosity. That gives a spot for each team. I would argue, yeah, but OWA doesn't have a place anymore because now they gave humans access to halflings, and of course,
and
I mean,
2-up throwing.
Yeah, and of course, it's a halfling. Throwing a halfling is still a risk, but the point is that OWA was the only human and dwarf team that could do that. Now they don't even have access to that, and why take this effort to make an Old World Alliance team when the human team can just do it? And you have more reliable players, more reliable linemen, more blitzers.
Yeah, so, like, on paper, Old World Alliance has more easy access to strength. On paper, because all the dwarfs have it, and then your big guy can get either your ogre or your tree man. Mm-hmm. So, like, on paper, you have more strength, but in practice, though, like, I don't know if guard walling is doable with Old World Alliance. Like, they certainly develop into something much better than what they are at 1000 TV, don't get me wrong, but at best, you're worse humans. And I get that this is, like, and don't let that statement be like a sticker shock thing, because humans were one of 2 really big winners in the new edition. I mean, I think the more people play, I think the more people are coming to the conclusion that humans and undead are just, like, really big winners in the new edition.
Yeah.
There's probably more out there. Look, I can't test out every team and play this game 24/7, but the reality is this team that you made last year does not have a place in your game because of other balance changes, and that's a very easy thing to do. That's a very easy trap to fall into, especially with mixed teams. Like, when you're trying to take pieces and parts from different stuff, you're gonna end up realizing the design space that you thought was there isn't there, and that's okay. Like, that happens. That's a part of game design. But I can't help but feel like Old World Alliance got done dirty here.
And arguably, like, the fact that you can get a tree man helps it a bit because a tree man's a cheaper option to throw that halfling. And the humans don't.
The tree man, honestly.
Yeah, and the humans don't get that, so that is an upside. It's a small upside, but that is something to take account. However, and I'm gonna beat this dead horse until it turns in the paste, but the thrower for the human team, it's $80,000. You get 2-up with pass. That's phenomenal. It's great. It's the best in the game. And you flip to the Old World Alliance, and this is another issue I have with these freaking mixed teams, like the Chaos Renegades and the Underworlds. It's a 1-to-1 transition when it comes to team skills and their stats until you get to the human thrower, who in the Old World Alliance has a 3-up with pass. That's still good, but I'm paying $5,000 more for a worse thrower.
I'm actually going to push back on one part of that statement. I don't actually think it's good. Because the big thing is that a lot of your punch comes from slower players, like the people that, like, are, made for blocking and like getting based up are your dwarfs. Armbar brawler versus a block tackle aside, the dwarfs are still going to do dwarf things or try to do dwarf things. So when I see that my strongest players are slow, and then I've got an MA8 catcher and this human thrower who throws worse than his regular human counterpart. No, I actually think that 3-up's really bad. It was one of my biggest complaints with playing when I was playing Old World Alliance. I was like, this thrower did not need to be a 3-up. And part of this is that the throwing template change, which I actually think is a good change. I don't think that you needed to do the double whammy of template change plus 3-up pass on this guy. I think what you've instead done is you have made your team worse than humans in almost every way. And that's depressing. I get it. Blood Bowl is not supposed to be a balanced game because Stunty exists and all this other stuff exists, and that's fine. But there's a difference between unbalanced for fun and unbalanced because this team just kind of exists, and that's about it.
Again, it's about filling a spot in Blood Bowl. And the Old World Alliance has, if they do have a spot, the worst spot in the game. They're expensive. They don't have any catch to their play style, and they don't include facsimiles of the players that they're trying to represent. And it just hurts my eyes, and it's also hurt my league stats every time I have to look at these guys. And maybe there is something that I'm missing when it comes to creating them, but if someone asked me to guide them on how to make an Old World Alliance team, beyond telling them to get a tree, I'd probably just tell them to get the human kit, grab an ogre, and then run with that instead.
I mean, I would too if they wanted like honest results. And like I do want to clarify one thing. I don't think when you say worst position, you mean like they're the worst team and like they're like the worst team in the game, like stats wise, etc. Yeah. I think the big thing is that worst team in the game, as in there's no appeal. There's no real big appeal to playing them. It's the hobbyist's dream. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I've written up lore for all of my Old World Alliance characters, and some of it goes pretty deep for some reason. I love that. I love the team for that. It is a hobbyist's dream. But when we look at reasons to play them, and yes, goblins, the reason you play goblins is because it's funny. Or because, chainsaws, bombs, and like snotling, stuff like that. That is a reason to play that team. So when we say worst team in the game, we don't mean stats or like playability or just like this team won't win tournaments. We mean in terms of like appeal to play it, because at the end of the game, Blood Bowl's built a lot on the appeal of the team the team that you're playing. And I don't see it for Old World outside of like its concept. Its concept is so cool, and the execution is just why Games Workshop.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. It's like buying a car in a sense. If you buy something crappy and it was really cheap, you don't think too much about it. But if you bought, say, like a sports car, and you got into it and it felt like some gaudy, rehashed vehicle, it'll hurt you more, and it comes out to you more as bad than it does anything that was cheap and crappy. Like what?
Yeah.
I think that their model design's fine. I like that the original color scheme that they came with, and I mean, Lord knows people wanted to play, variants with dwarves and humans because that's, it's part of fantasy in general. Humans and dwarves and all the things that come in between. But how can you look at this team that you put, like, if you made this a team of legend, yeah, I would have been pissed. But you didn't throw it into the rule book, and you didn't give it these rules, and you didn't destroy it. Like the Norse teams and all the other teams of Legends, they stayed relatively the same, even with the new 2020 rules, to give or take some passing.
Yeah.
This, you put this in your official rule book, you don't support it, and if you do support it, you're a mad person. Absolutely mad. Or just a hobbyist. But then again, like, the whole point of getting these models is to play, or at least to show off, or to like have the ability to perform. And this is this is hard to imagine. It's I almost wish that this had turned into a team of legend where people would put it together on their off time, and I would never have to really worry about it seeing official support unless they brought it back in some sort of way. I would accept these price increases if they didn't change dwarves fundamentally. I would accept taking less positionals because it's a mixed team. Of course we're going to have less. But why would you not ruin? Ruin's a tough word. Why would you?
Yeah, this is not a ruin.
What would you? Why would you make a team so challenging that you would ruin all of the speciality that it comes with?
I think the question is, so like when we talk about like challenging teams, like people like to think about stunty teams. Well, the fun part of stunty teams is that there's some really crazy stuff you can do, and this team doesn't have that. So I think what you're trying to articulate is that there is a lot of challenge in this team, but very little gameplay payoff.
Yeah.
Like, goblins is hard to play, but you get a chainsaw. You know? And who doesn't like that?
Yeah.
But I think that the thing that this team, the type of like coaches that this team appeals to are people who want to challenge but want to be playing a like fair, air quotes, because fair in Blood Bowl is yeah, but play a challenging team to play a fair, air quotes, game of Blood Bowl. And I think that, and I think that's part of like its appeal to me. Like, I'm probably still going to play this team, but I will lament that there are things that are missing from this team that needed to be in it. Like there needed to be like something else. Like you either needed to like make some of these positions a little bit stronger. I'm not going to say that you needed to add an elf. I know all the other mixed teams have an AG4 player. I think an elf on this team would be horrendous. As much as I love Vermintide, as much as I love Vermintide and get to see that dynamic all the time, it just feels like that there's something missing from this team. And to my knowledge, Death Zone didn't add anything. I haven't actually picked up Death Zone. Death Zone dropped, today?
Yeah.
Day of recording. We're recording this on the 17th, so I think it dropped today. And I was going to go out to my store to get it, and then I didn't. But yeah, there's nothing like that in Death Zone. But
it is a team that derives itself from some of the most serious teams in the game, the humans and dwarves. Staples, very competitive, and it turns them into a mixed team, but then hits them with a nerf bat so hard that their nerf insignia is imprinted on their forehead. And
backwards.
I don't want to say that, this is a step in the wrong direction, but it is a warning. It is a warning to Games Workshop that I of all people love mixed teams. I like variety. I like teams and even factions that are based off of their ideals or their play style more than their race, because that can be a very boring thing to just have an entire race be one thing. This is not how you do that. You don't change so much and then nerf so much that it becomes unappealing to anyone that has ever picked up Blood Bowl. So, with that in mind, we're at the 30-minute mark. 30-minute mark.
Yeah, we've got time. We're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nerfing the team was a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things I think the big thing for me that I think is unnecessary is this 3-up passing. I think it could have been a 2-up passer with the passing changes already.
Yeah.
And this team would actually be okay. I think that this team would be fine. Because then you can at least do like a short pass on a 3-up as opposed to a 4-up, so you actually compensate for a lot of the slowness of your positionals. But like when I look at the roster, like when I look at like the different kinds of starting rosters for this team, it's like, okay, you can go dwarf based, and dwarf based is fine, and that works. I think that's honestly the way that I would play this team, because otherwise, why would I play anything else? As we'll see, where you like have something go, like you actually have like something that human teams don't, and I think that the best way to compound that would be like, what, you take the blitzer, both blockers. Don't take the runner. I actually think the runner's really bad in this team. It's slower and more expensive and worse at passing, and you have a human catcher positional. Don't take the dwarf runner.
Yeah.
And then you can take the tree man, because that means that you're actually better at throwing things, because you have strong arm. So you're actually better at throwing things. The other direction that I've seen people try to take this team is go almost all humans, and then go the tree man and the extra halflings. But I'm like, okay, at that point, why not just play humans?
Yeah.
Right? So like your real build that makes you unique is with these dwarves, and like I guess you develop into getting this getting the Slayer eventually. Frankly, the lineup that I've yet to try but I want to try is the super greedy, like almost all dwarf positionals. You don't have the runner, but you have the big guy and like the human blitzer, the catcher, the thrower, and then you go to one reroll. Just super greedy. And be like, all right, let's do this. Because I mean, you do have brawler, you've got block, you have sure hands, you have pass, catch, and dodge. What are you rerolling? Yeah. If you play safe, if you just take your 2 dies, because I don't think you can do like 1 die blocks to bully your opponent like you can with like dwarves. I don't think you can do that here, but that might be actually like a fairly respectable team. But it's still going to be worse humans. And that's what bothers me. Is not that the team got nerfed. The team needed to get nerfed. What bugs me is that your most respectable lineup, 1 or 2 rerolls, whichever one you go for, like full dwarf greed or not, is still just an inferior version of something else with not a lot of payoff outside of the hobby. Rewarding hobbyists is good. This is not rewarding the hobbyist.
This is abusing the hobbyist's wallet. So,
yes.
With that in mind,
I have my old World Alliance staring at me on my desk right now, and I'm sorry. I love you, but the truth had to be said.
Yeah. The truth has been said. And with that, we're going to close this questionable take. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening. I want to thank Keyframe for editing. And if you guys want to join us, we're actually going to be running a Blood Bowl League soon. If you bring Old World Alliance, I'll be disappointed, but you're welcome. You're welcome to join.
We'll put a bounty on your head.
We will. We will put a bounty on your head. In fact, you'll probably be sought out by the people who brought these Old World Alliance bodies to us personally. Thank you to the 2 new witch hunters for bringing me my related Old World Alliance team's bodies. I appreciate their service. And I also appreciate all those who are listening right now, as the only people we've pissed off is ourselves this week.
I was so afraid of doing this episode. Like, oh god, like small podcast, like rant episode. Oh no.
No, this is definitely needed. And again, we'll thank you all for listening. We need to take aspirin.
We recorded our catharsis for your enjoyment.
I need to head down to the local brewery so I can drink a little bit of this away. And we'll see you all guys next time. Next time will be Death Zone for sure. Yeah.
Take it easy, everybody.
And then we hit the stop button.
Oh yeah, let me find the stop button. There's the stop button.